Unconscious bias is one of those forces that most people deny having, yet it silently shapes the way they act, speak, and respond to others. It is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it comes disguised as a mistake, a misunderstanding, or a routine check, but the impact it leaves on the person suffering it is anything but small. Imagine standing in a public space where everyone can see you, where everyone can hear you being questioned, doubted, and separated from the rest. You haven't done anything wrong. You haven't broken rules. You haven't even spoken yet. But before you open your mouth, someone has already decided who you are, what you can afford, and where you do or do not belong. That silent decision, formed in a fraction of a second, becomes the reason for your embarrassment, your humiliation, your forced explanations. This is exactly how unconscious bias works. It doesn't wait to gather facts. It doesn't wait to observe your behavior. It doesn't wait to ask who you are, what you do, or what position you hold. It simply looks at something as basic as your skin color, your features, your clothes, or your accent, and it creates a story about you. A false story. A story based on assumption, not truth. And the shocking part is that most people acting on these assumptions genuinely believe they are being neutral or professional. They don't feel the weight of their actions because to them it seems normal. But the person standing on the receiving end feels every second of it like a spotlight burning through their dignity. In the case of this black business leader, the humiliation didn't start with words. It started with a look. A look of doubt, of suspicion, of the kind of hesitation that makes it clear someone has already placed you in a category you don't belong in. He was standing there like any other passenger who had paid for priority service, yet he was the only one told to wait. The only one questioned. The only one asked to prove what others were simply allowed to state. People often say that bias is fading, that society is improving, that we are more aware now. But moments like these prove that awareness is not enough. Because unconscious bias doesn't announce itself. It hides behind polite tones, behind scripted lines, behind, just doing my job, and yet the message it sends is powerful: you don't belong here until you convince me otherwise. What makes this experience even more painful is that it happens in public. Everyone around you sees what's happening, but no one steps in. No one questions the staff. No one asks why one person is being singled out. And in that moment, the silence of the crowd becomes part of the humiliation. You can feel eyes on you, not out of empathy but out of curiosity, almost as if the scene is confirming whatever stereotype they might have already believed. It is in those moments that a small act of bias becomes a heavy emotional burden. And no level of success, no amount of wealth, no level of accomplishment fully shields you from it. Because bias doesn't check your LinkedIn profile before treating you unfairly. It doesn't research your achievements. It simply reacts to the surface. But the deeper tragedy of unconscious bias is that it robs people of equal treatment long before anyone realizes the damage is done. It discourages confidence. It creates anxiety where calm once existed. It forces people to prepare explanations for things they should never have to explain. And in professional environments like airports, offices, hotels, or corporate settings, these moments stack up. They accumulate into a pattern that tells entire communities they will always need to prove themselves twice as much to be treated normally. Not better, not superior, not exceptionally, just normally. In this leader's experience, the humiliation came not from the procedure itself but from the fact that the procedure was selectively applied. It came from being told to step aside while others were waved through. It came from the staff refusing to consider even the possibility that he might belong in the same line as the passengers who came after him. In that moment, their assumptions overpowered their professionalism, and their unconscious bias overruled their training. And this is what turns a simple interaction into a moment that stays with someone long after they leave the airport. Because it isn't the inconvenience that hurts the most, it's the message behind it, the message that tells you your appearance was all they needed to decide your worth, your status, and your right to stand where you were standing. Professionalism is not a uniform, not a badge, not a scripted line spoken with a polite smile. Professionalism is a mindset, a discipline, a commitment to treat every human being with fairness and consistency, regardless of how they look or where they come from. Yet in many places, professionalism becomes flexible, applied fully to some, applied halfway to others, and withheld almost entirely from those who don't fit a certain expectation. When appearance becomes the deciding factor for how someone is treated, the entire idea of professionalism collapses. It becomes something shallow, something performative, something that bends under prejudice instead of rising above it. In this situation at the airport, the staff believed they were following procedure, but their behavior revealed something deeper. They weren't treating every passenger based on the same rules. They were treating passengers based on the image they had formed the moment someone stepped in front of them. Some people, dressed a certain way, carrying certain accessories, or fitting a certain appearance, were greeted with automatic respect. Others were greeted with suspicion. Some were welcomed instantly. Others were questioned repeatedly. And without noticing it, the staff allowed their personal assumptions to become the foundation of their professionalism. The painful truth is that many people still judge professionalism based on appearance rather than behavior. A person in a suit is respected, a person in casual clothes is doubted. A person with lighter skin is welcomed, a person with darker skin must explain themselves. A traveler who looks wealthy is trusted, a traveler who doesn't fit that image is interrogated. But professionalism was never meant to depend on appearance. It was meant to provide equal treatment to every individual, no matter what assumptions someone might subconsciously hold. The black business leader in this story didn't dress to impress. He dressed comfortably for travel, like any reasonable person would. But instead of recognizing him as a valued customer, the staff reduced him to a stereotype. They didn't consider that he could be a CEO, an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, or someone with global influence. They didn't consider that he had earned his place in the priority line through hard work, intelligence, and years of dedication. They looked only at the surface, and the surface, shaped by their own internal biases, became their justification for mistreating him. What makes this behavior even more troubling is that it creates a dangerous cycle. When people in uniform or in positions of authority treat others based on appearance, they reinforce the idea that some individuals deserve respect while others must earn it. They normalize the expectation that certain people will always be doubted first. And once this becomes routine, the line between professionalism and discrimination blurs completely. It becomes possible for someone to humiliate another person while believing they are just doing their job. Professionalism requires awareness. It requires the ability to pause and question your own assumptions before acting. It requires recognizing the humanity of the person in front of you rather than relying on surface-level judgments. When the airport staff failed to do this, they not only disrespected a customer, they disrespected the standard of service their job demanded. They allowed bias to guide decisions that should have been guided by training, integrity, and fairness. This moment also reveals something about the nature of respect. True respect is not something you give only to people who look important. True respect is given to everyone, regardless of who they are or what social category they fit into. When staff treat a wealthy executive with respect only after discovering his identity, that is not professionalism, that is selective courtesy. It shows that their respect was conditional, not consistent. And conditional respect is one of the most harmful behaviors in any workplace, because it creates divisions, encourages favoritism, and silently reinforces discrimination. People often forget that in environments like airports, hotels, and corporate offices, the person who looks ordinary might be extraordinary. The person who looks simple might be powerful. The person being doubted might be the very one who shapes industries or creates opportunities for others. When staff treat someone poorly based on appearance, they risk embarrassing not only the individual but also themselves and the institution they represent. The irony in this story is that the staff believed they were protecting a standard by questioning him, when in reality, they were violating it. They believed they were upholding procedure, when in truth, they were undermining it. They believed their judgment was accurate, when it was shaped by assumptions they never questioned. And this is why professionalism must always rise above the flaws of human perception. It must be rooted in fairness, not impression. In equality, not stereotypes. In consistency, not selective treatment. Because the moment professionalism becomes dependent on appearance, it stops being professionalism at all. Staying calm when others disrespect you is one of the most difficult forms of strength a person can possess. It is easy to react. It is easy to raise your voice, argue back, or let anger take control. But staying composed in the middle of humiliation takes a different kind of power, a power that comes from knowing who you are beyond how others treat you. In moments of disrespect, especially moments driven by bias or prejudice, anger feels justified. The world expects a reaction. The people causing the disrespect often even anticipate it. But the real mastery is when you can hold your composure and let your dignity speak louder than your frustration. This business leader found himself standing in a space where he had every reason to be offended. The staff questioned him repeatedly, their tone sharp, dismissive, and almost accusatory. They treated him as if he was trying to claim something he didn't deserve, as if he had stepped into a line that didn't belong to him. People passing by could see the tension, could hear the exchange, and some of them watched with silent judgment. In moments like these, even the air feels heavy. Every second stretches longer than it should. And beneath it all, there is a sting, an internal reminder that you are being mistreated not because of your actions, but because of who someone assumes you are. Yet he stood there calmly. He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't allow their assumptions to dictate his reaction. That kind of calm isn't weakness, it is control. It is the awareness that responding with anger might satisfy the moment but could also empower the narrative others want to place on you. When someone already views you through a biased lens, any sign of frustration becomes proof of their assumptions. But when you hold your calm, you break that narrative. You refuse to play the role they expect you to play. Calmness in the face of disrespect is not about suppressing emotion. It is about choosing a higher response. It is about understanding that your self-worth is not defined by how someone speaks to you. It is about protecting your peace in situations designed to provoke you. And in professional environments like airports or offices, that calmness becomes even more valuable, because it keeps the situation from escalating while preserving your dignity. Another powerful aspect of staying calm is that it exposes the behavior of the other person more clearly. When you remain composed, their unreasonable actions stand out. Their disrespect becomes more visible. Their lack of professionalism becomes undeniable. People around you start to see the contrast, one person behaving with patience and restraint, the other acting with impatience, doubt, or prejudice. Calmness becomes a mirror, reflecting the true nature of the interaction. For this business leader, remaining calm also allowed him to maintain control of the moment. The staff expected irritation. They expected confrontation. They expected defensiveness. Instead, they met someone who responded with steady confidence, someone who knew the truth about his identity and didn't feel the need to shout it. There is something profoundly powerful about knowing your worth so deeply that someone else's ignorance cannot shake it. He understood that his achievements, his status, and his success were not defined by this moment. He didn't need validation from people who couldn't see beyond the surface. And when the truth eventually came out, when the staff realized who he really was, the calmness he maintained earlier became even more significant. It highlighted his character. It showed that he didn't rely on his title to demand respect. He relied on his dignity. Many people, when mistreated, might react by flaunting their status, asserting their authority, or using their position as a tool for retaliation. But choosing not to do that, choosing instead to stay composed until the truth revealed itself, demonstrates a level of maturity and discipline that few possess. The ability to stay calm is also a form of silent education. It teaches the people around you something they might not learn through confrontation. It shows them the strength of patience, the weight of restraint, and the impact of self-control. Sometimes, the most powerful message is delivered not through shouting, but through stillness. Not through argument, but through presence. Not through reacting emotionally, but through responding intentionally. This calmness also protects mental energy. Disrespect takes a toll. Misjudgment takes a toll. The constant need to prove yourself takes a toll. But reacting emotionally drains even more. When you stay calm, you conserve your strength. You keep your focus. You refuse to let someone else's behavior dictate your emotional state. You remain grounded, centered, and in control of yourself, even when the world around you feels unkind. In moments of bias or unfair treatment, calmness becomes a shield. It does not erase the hurt, but it prevents the hurt from becoming destructive. It allows you to walk away with your self-respect intact. It becomes a reminder that dignity is not given by others, it is maintained by you. Titles, success, achievements, and accolades often create the illusion that they act as shields against prejudice. People like to believe that the higher someone rises in life, the more respect they automatically receive. But the reality is very different. Bias does not pause for success. Prejudice does not stop to check resumes. Discrimination does not ask for your accomplishments before acting. It simply reacts to what it sees in the moment, and that reaction is often shaped by deep-rooted assumptions rather than truth. No matter how high someone climbs, there are moments when the world tries to pull them back down based on the most superficial judgments. This business leader was someone who had worked tirelessly to build his empire. He had led companies, influenced industries, and created opportunities for thousands. His name carried weight in boardrooms. His decisions affected markets. His leadership was admired across countries. Yet in that airport line, none of it mattered. In that moment, he wasn't seen as a CEO, a visionary, or a respected figure. He was reduced to a stereotype, treated as if he didn't belong in the space he rightfully occupied. His success couldn't protect him from the assumptions of people who didn't even bother to look beyond the surface. This is one of the most painful truths about bias: no matter how far you rise, it can still find you. You can wear designer clothes, travel first class, hold elite memberships, and carry the highest status, yet still be treated as if you have to prove yourself. Culture often sends the message that success is the antidote to discrimination, that money, power, and influence eliminate unfair treatment. But moments like this expose how untrue that belief is. Success may change your environment, but it doesn't change the mindset of everyone within that environment. Titles do not erase ignorance. Status does not wipe away prejudice. Even the most accomplished individuals can be forced into situations where they must justify their presence. And this is what makes these encounters so deeply frustrating: the work someone has done, the life they have built, the respect they have earned privately and publicly, all become invisible in the face of a biased assumption. It is as if years of hard work vanish the moment someone looks at you and decides you don't look like the type who belongs in a premium line or a VIP lounge. What happened in that airport is a powerful reminder that people often judge based on a single moment rather than an entire life. The staff didn't know his journey, his sacrifices, or his accomplishments. They didn't know the barriers he had broken, the companies he had built, or the impact he had on others. To them, he was simply someone who looked out of place, someone whose presence needed to be questioned. And this disconnect between who someone truly is and how they are treated by strangers is what makes unconscious bias so damaging. It forces even the most successful individuals to confront the uncomfortable truth that society still has a long way to go in recognizing equality beyond appearances. But another important reality emerges from this moment: true strength is not in the title you hold but in the character you show when the title is hidden. Because when success cannot protect you, your dignity must. When your achievements do not speak for you, your composure must. When your status is ignored, your confidence becomes your shield. This business leader didn't rely on his position to demand respect. He didn't throw around his title, flash his credentials, or try to intimidate the staff with his authority. Instead, he let his presence and his calm take the lead, knowing that who he was on the inside mattered far more than what they failed to see on the outside. There is also an irony in these situations. The very people who question someone's worth are often shocked when they discover the truth. The same staff who doubted him would later realize they had disrespected someone far more influential than they imagined. And in that realization comes an uncomfortable reflection, not because they treated an important man poorly, but because their behavior revealed how they might treat countless others who don't have a powerful title to shock them back into respect. This moment wasn't just about him, it was about everyone who faces similar treatment without the chance for a dramatic reveal. It shows that society must move away from conditional respect, respect that rises when someone is powerful and falls when someone seems ordinary. True equality means treating every individual with the same dignity you would automatically give to someone with a prestigious title. Because if respect only appears after learning someone's status, then it is not respect, it is admiration mixed with bias, and it holds no real moral weight. In the end, titles and success can elevate your life, but they cannot erase the prejudice in others. The world may celebrate your achievements in one room and question your worth in the next. And moments like the one in that airport remind us that respect must be rooted in humanity, not hierarchy. The moment the truth is revealed and the tables turn is often the most powerful part of any story involving prejudice. It is the moment when assumptions collapse, when confidence melts into regret, and when the people who once held power suddenly realize how poorly they behaved. In situations like this, the shift doesn't happen gradually. It happens instantly, like a sudden burst of light exposing what was hidden in the dark. 1 second, the staff believed they were in control, justified in their doubts, firm in their judgment. The next second, they discovered that the person they had been questioning, sidelining, and humiliating was not just any passenger but one of the most influential business leaders in the region. And in that moment, every word they had spoken and every decision they had made replayed in their minds with a different weight. What makes this turning point so profound is not just the reveal of the man's identity, but the sharp contrast between how he was treated before and after. Before they knew who he was, the staff spoke to him with impatience, with a condescending tone, with the kind of dismissal that comes from assuming someone cannot possibly belong where they are standing. But once the truth came out, their entire demeanor shifted. Their posture straightened. Their voices softened. Their eyes widened with shock. Suddenly, the same person they doubted became someone they wanted to assist, someone they wanted to please, someone they wished they had treated better from the start. The business leader didn't need to announce his status. That is what made the moment even more impactful. The truth surfaced because others recognized him, fellow passengers, airport officials, or perhaps a senior staff member who knew his name and reputation. And with that recognition came a ripple effect that traveled through the room. The staff who once questioned him now scrambled to recover their mistake. Apologies poured out hastily. Their earlier confidence disappeared, replaced by nervousness and discomfort. This sudden reversal is not just about embarrassment, it is about realization. It is the moment when they finally understood that their assumptions had blinded them to the truth. But beyond the drama of discovery, this moment carries a deeper message: people should not have to be important to be treated properly. They should not need a title or status to receive respect. And yet, the staff's reaction revealed a truth about human behavior: respect often increases when someone learns who you are, instead of being given because of common decency. Their sudden shift in behavior exposed the conditional nature of their professionalism. They didn't change because they recognized their mistake in judging him unfairly. They changed because they realized they had misjudged someone powerful. For the business leader, watching this transformation unfold must have been a strange mixture of emotions. On one hand, there is a sense of satisfaction in seeing that the truth dismantled their arrogance. On the other hand, there is a deeper disappointment in knowing that the respect he received afterward was not genuine respect, it was fear of consequences, fear of being held accountable, fear of treating the wrong person poorly. This moment becomes a painful reminder that many people in society do not treat others with dignity because it is right, but because they believe the person might be someone important. The turning of tables also created an undeniable discomfort for the staff. They were forced to confront their bias in real time. They had to look at the same man they underestimated and realize that he had every right to be where he was. Their earlier confidence in their judgment dissolved the moment they learned the truth. And in that state of panic, They began to overcompensate, offering assistance, offering upgrades, offering apologies, anything to erase the humiliation they had caused. But it is impossible to erase such a moment. Once revealed, the truth lingers in the air, reminding everyone of how quickly judgment can fail. What makes the reveal even more powerful is that it shifts the balance of power without the man having to say a single harsh word. His calm, his dignity, and his silence become the strongest responses in the room. He didn't need anger to reclaim his respect. The truth did it for him. And the staff were left to face the consequences of their assumptions, not through punishment, but through the weight of their own guilt and realization. This moment becomes a mirror for society. It forces people to question how many times they might have treated someone unfairly simply because they assumed something based on appearance. It forces reflection on how quickly perceptions can change when someone discovers who another person really is, and why that change shouldn't depend on status, but on humanity. The shock of this moment becomes a lesson, not just for the staff involved, but for anyone who witnesses or hears the story. A reminder that the real measure of character is how you treat people when you believe they can offer you nothing in return. Workplaces today are more diverse, more global, and more interconnected than ever before, yet moments like the one at the airport show that respect is still not something everyone receives equally. The lesson for workplaces is simple but powerful: dignity should never be optional, selective, or conditional. It should be the foundation of every interaction, every decision, and every policy. When people are treated with dignity, they feel seen. When they are treated without it, they feel invisible. And invisibility in a workplace does more damage than most leaders realize. It kills motivation, breaks trust, and silently erodes the culture from within. One of the most important lessons this story highlights is the need for cultural awareness. Employees cannot serve customers from around the world or work alongside colleagues from different backgrounds if they lack understanding of diversity. Awareness is not about memorizing facts about cultures. It is about learning to approach every individual with an open mind, free from assumptions. The airport staff failed in that regard. They allowed their unconscious bias to guide their actions. They made judgments before gathering information. They allowed appearance to dictate treatment. That same pattern is seen in workplaces where some employees are treated as capable and trustworthy while others are questioned, underestimated, or overlooked simply because they don't fit the stereotype of what professional looks like. Cultural awareness also means learning to question your own reactions. Why do you doubt one person but trust another instantly? Why do you assume someone with expensive clothes deserves more respect than someone dressed casually? Why do you speak politely to one person but firmly to another? These are questions every workplace must encourage employees to ask themselves. Because without self-reflection, unconscious bias becomes normalized behavior, and normalized behavior becomes culture. A workplace cannot claim to be inclusive if its culture allows people to be treated differently based on assumptions rather than actions. Another lesson from this story is the importance of consistent professionalism. Respect should not increase with status and decrease with simplicity. True professionalism is measured by how you treat the person who walks in with no title, no prestige, no visible signs of importance. If an employee treats a CEO with kindness only after learning their identity, that is not professionalism. It is performance. And performance-based respect weakens the integrity of an organization. Employees who treat people differently depending on who they think they are eventually create divisions: those who feel valued and those who feel overlooked. Those who feel respected and those who feel belittled. Those who feel like they belong and those who feel like outsiders. A workplace that values dignity teaches its staff that every person deserves the same level of courtesy, patience, and fairness. This doesn't just create a better customer experience, it also creates a healthier internal environment. Employees learn to trust each other because respect is consistent. Leaders become more effective because they are seen as fair. And customers feel more valued because they know they will not be judged based on appearance but treated based on their humanity. Another crucial lesson is the power of emotional intelligence. The business leader in this story stayed calm, kept his composure, and controlled his emotions despite the disrespect he faced. Workplaces that encourage emotional intelligence create employees who can handle pressure without losing themselves. They learn to pause before reacting, to listen before assuming, and to reflect before speaking. Emotional intelligence also protects workplaces from unnecessary conflicts. When employees learn to handle frustration gracefully, they create harmony in the environment, even when situations feel tense or unfair. This story also teaches that leaders must set the tone. If managers allow selective respect, employees will follow that pattern. If leaders ignore bias, staff will consider it acceptable. Leadership is not just about making decisions, it is about shaping the standards of behavior. A leader must model what dignity looks like, not only when interacting with other leaders, but when interacting with every individual, whether they are entry-level employees, customers, or people society often underestimates. When leaders demonstrate consistent respect, the workplace becomes a reflection of that behavior. Another lesson is accountability. The airport staff realized too late that their actions had consequences. But workplaces should not wait for a dramatic reveal to recognize mistakes. They need systems that address disrespect before it becomes culture. Training sessions, open conversations, anonymous reporting, and active reminders of values are essential. Accountability must not exist only when dealing with important customers or powerful figures, it must exist for everyone. Finally, the greatest lesson is that dignity is not about who the person is, it is about who you choose to be. Even if the traveler had not been a CEO, even if he had held no title, no wealth, no influence, he still deserved the same respect. Workplaces must build environments where dignity is a habit, not a reaction. Where respect is given freely, not earned through status. Where people are valued because they are human, not because they hold power. When dignity becomes the everyday language of an organization, it transforms the workplace into a space where everyone can belong, contribute, and rise with confidence.